Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love Michigan football as much as I do. You know, out of every game Michigan has for the upcoming season, I think that Penn State game is going to be the hardest. That might be the game that they lose, that trap game, because Penn State is coming off such a high amount of momentum from last year. They lost to Michigan, and then they went and lost to Ohio State at home in a very close game, much closer than the scoreboard said at the end of the game. After that, they didn't lose no more. They went on to win the Rose Bowl. You know, they knocked off Utah. Penn State was such a really good football team last year. I mean, it's a shame that they weren't in the playoff or at least in the Big Ten championship. Here's the thing, that tells you how good the Big Ten can be. You know, you got Michigan as best, Ohio State second, and then you have Penn State. Penn State's a team that I believe can play with anybody. And let's be honest. I know last year it was a blowout on the scoreboard, but let's be honest. That game was a little bit closer than that scoreboard says. I think Michigan just pulled away about like what they did with Ohio State. It was closer than the scoreboard said. I don't think Michigan was 20-something points, 30 points, or whatever the difference was, that much better than either of those teams, Penn State or Ohio State. Penn State's bringing back most of their defense. They're bringing back a lot of their offense. I know they lost Clifford to the NFL, but I don't think that's a big of a miss. Nothing against Clifford, but I do think the rest of that team is going to uplift the new quarterback for Penn State. I think with Manny Diaz in his second year in Penn State's defense as a defensive coordinator, that's going to make a big difference. Clearly, he made a big difference this past year. Penn State's defense wasn't a joke. I know Michigan pulled away, but early on, people were saying Michigan was dominating that game. The line of scrimmage, maybe, but they couldn't quite punch it into the end zone for a while there. They had a hard time finding the end zone, you know, because Penn State's defense was so stingy, especially in that red zone. So Penn State's going to be a lot better than that this year. I really think they'll be strong. They'll be monsters in the trenches this year more than what they were this past year. They were pretty athletic last year, very hard to deal with, very tricky. Their run defense might have been the only weakness that I saw. And even then, that wasn't a terrible run defense. Michigan has a lot of rushing yards against everybody, minus TCU without Blake Corum. Yeah, I do think that this will be a very hard game. I do think Michigan can beat them. But if I had to pick one game that Michigan would lose, the highest chances to lose, because Ohio State's at home. I know they have to play Maryland. That's a tough game, always. I know they got other tough teams out there to deal with, but if they had any game to lose, the one that makes the most sense from the top of my head would be the Penn State Nittany Lions. As a Michigan fan, I actually have a lot of respect for Penn State. I do think that Coach Franklin has them in the right direction. If anybody that I want to represent the Big Ten in the playoff this year, possibly a national championship game outside of these guys, I would have to say it had to be them. I would love to see Penn State really do something. It sucks that we're in the same division, to be honest with you. I've never talked trash about Penn State. I've never made fun of Penn State. I've made fun of the scandal that they had years ago, but that's not Coach Franklin's fault. That's nobody on Penn State's program's fault today, you know, but it is what it is. And I make fun of it for good reason, you know. Might as well, because if I think about it in any other kind of way and get mad about it, it's not good. But hey, much love and respect to Penn State's football team, their program. It should be an amazing game over there. It's a really hard environment to play in. Definitely a tough place to play. Penn State is going to be a monster this year, I believe. I do believe Michigan's going to be really, really good, but we'll see what happens. That should be a phenomenal game. Phenomenal. I don't know if I said that word right. That should be a great game. That's an easier word to say. So, much love, respect to the Nittany Lions, but I hope Michigan gets y'all again.